Life comes with a lot of decisions, and it can be hard to know the right path sometimes. A therapist can help you map out what you really want, so you trust yourself to make great choices and feel excited about the future. BetterHelp offers convenient professional online therapy on your schedule, however you want it, by phone, chat, or video call. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/positive today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/positive.
Nationals baseball is in full swing.
Strike three called. He got him looking. That's 10 strikeouts for Mackenzie Gore.
With the free Odyssey app, local fans can listen live all summer long, whether you're at the grill or at the pool.
Going, and gone. Goodbye. C.J. Abrams, a grand slam.
Nationals baseball. Nationals announcer. Streaming live on the free Odyssey app. AUDACY. Get in the game and download it today.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. It's Sports Daily, hour number 1 here on KFH. Glad to be with you. Jacob Albrock, Tommy Castor. IHOP hotline's open, 869-1240. Tommy, let's hit the bad news. We've had some fun with the Home Run Derby. Happy to jump back there with you. But Pat Fitzgerald, we've got two coaches, two sort of legends in their industries in trouble now, and both not coaching the programs we've grown accustomed to them coaching for different reasons. Let's start with Fitzgerald. This happened yesterday. If you hadn't seen what was happening there has been an investigation into hazing allegations at the university for a little while. An investigation that, an independent investigation that didn't really turn anything up, not enough anyway, but the university, and you can go to the university newspaper where they did a little more in-depth reporting with some of the accusers after the fact that the university was just going to suspend Pat Fitzgerald for basically not having control over the program during all of this. And you can see a little more specifically, if you choose, some of the allegations about what was going on. Pretty intense hazing, stupid, dumb, idiotic act, if it's true, of like, scratch your head, like, why? Like, what in the world, and how, like, why or how does this happen? Like, I've been in locker rooms. I got 4 brothers. I get ribbing each other. I get messing with each other. I that's all fine and whatever, but there's this clear line that gets crossed all the time, and it just makes you wonder, like, who's signing off on this? Like, who's like, yeah, that'd be a good idea. So you can go look into that if you want. We don't need to discuss it here. Not even sure if it's radio appropriate. But, sexual abuse allegations. So the university then does a little deeper dive, and the school president comes back and says, you know what? In light of everything, we're going to fire Pat Fitzgerald, which was a shocking development in this story, quite frankly, because Pat Fitzgerald probably has a pretty solid case here. Now, the university will I'm sure, say this is for cause, but, man, when there's an independent investigation that doesn't show any direct involvement from Pat Fitzgerald, it's going to be tough. And he's already hired a high-profile attorney to fight this. He's in, like, year 2 of a 10-year contract at his alma mater. It's going to be a hot mess. It's so ridiculous that this even still happens. And I do give a lot of leniency to young people to be idiots, because we've all been there. We were all probably, most of us anyway, idiots when we were younger. Like, my goodness, what in the world is happening if this is true, that we even have to get to this point? And I don't necessarily feel bad for Pat Fitzgerald. He should have known what was going on if he didn't. But, like, everything's out the window now for a guy that before, 48 hours ago was as respected a name in the industry as we have. Unreal.
Here's where I land on all of this with Fitzgerald, is that if he did know what was going on,
right, and
he had sanctioned it or had, approved it or turned a blind eye to it, but he knew what was going on, then absolutely, he deserves to be out as the head coach at Northwestern. On the other hand, if he didn't know what was going on in his program, then I'm not sure that he is capable of running a high-profile football program. Because, you are the head coach and you are responsible for the culture of the program. And you should know what's going on inside your locker room. I know that you've got, a ton of guys in your program, and that's a lot of people to oversee, but you are in that locker room. You are around on a daily basis. You should know what goes on. And if you didn't know what's going on, then something's wrong there too. So either way, I'm not sure that I can find an area where I can have a lot of sympathy for Pat Fitzgerald. Either it was, him sanctioning something he shouldn't have and knew what was going on and just chose to ignore it, or he didn't know and he needed a better handle on his program. So either way, I get this. And I know that people are shocked. I know you're shocked when we talked about it yesterday. I don't know. I saw this coming a mile away. When he was suspended for 2 weeks without pay, I'm like, really? This is the off season where nothing is going on right now. So you're suspending him for 2 weeks without pay. All right, that's nothing more than a slap on the wrist.
I don't know. Was it 2 weeks in the season or 2 weeks right now?
2 weeks, right away. He was placed on suspension.
Yeah, that wasn't enough.
2 weeks, that's not enough. And all that did was cause the collective, university supporters and all of that to be like, hey, there's something else going on here. Credit to the student journalists for uncovering this. Keep in mind, Northwestern is in the Chicago metro, and you've got high profile media outlets that were not covering this, but the student newspaper did.
Let's be real. That is a very well-known and prestigious journalism university.
Yeah.
So that doesn't
Hats off to
surprise
them.
me.
You got
people
I didn't even know this
in
until
that school that are going into it for the right reasons.
I didn't even know this until yesterday. And I don't know if this guy runs the program or if he's just a professor. Did you know J.A. Adonde, who was on ESPN for years and years, is a professor in the Northwestern journalism department? And he might run the entire department. Yeah, I didn't know
I believe that I did know that. He left, I think, the L.A. Times to go there or something like that. I remember seeing that. Yeah, credit to them, absolutely. And I'm not saying I feel bad for Pat Fitzgerald because he got fired for this. That's not what I'm saying. It just I can imagine a scenario what I want to know about all this is how long was it happening? Was this one class of players that was doing this? Was it because that's a scenario where it's you get a couple of bad seeds who create this culture for a year and it wipes away everything that you've worked hard for to do the right way and, be a good ambassador of young men, because that's possible. I don't know that part of it. I didn't gather that part of it, the length of time that this was happening. It's the president's fault for such a lackluster punishment in the first place. And Pat Fitzgerald probably deserves blame there too, because I do believe that was a mutual decision. But yeah, 2 weeks with these sorts of accusations? No. And here's the other stupidity of it. Had the allegations been more public, had the university acknowledged exactly what was being accused, right, before the student newspaper, there's no chance they only say 2 weeks, right? The 2 week suspension came because nobody at that point knew what happened. The second everybody knows what happened, they're like, 2 weeks, what the hell?
Northwestern, they screwed the pooch on that initial punishment for Pat Fitzgerald. And had there been something that had a little bit more teeth on it at the beginning,
that's where
we might not be talking about Pat Fitzgerald losing his job.
That's why I'm saying I feel it's not that I feel bad. That's the wrong terminology. I don't feel bad at all. I don't care. It's that, had the university handled this better, Pat Fitzgerald might not be fired, right? And again, by all accounts, I don't think you wipe away all the good because of one thing that's been accused that, again, an independent panel found he didn't, this wasn't his responsibility. But it happens all the time, Tommy. What do you think is going to happen if you're Northwestern here? If you're that president, what do you think is going to happen if you just say, this happens all the time, too?
Yep.
This isn't the first time we've seen this. Are you kidding me? You don't think, if those are the allegations, you don't think that's coming out somewhere? That's so stupid and idiotic. And yeah, I agree with you. If they came out and said, look, this is heinous. I don't care what the independent panel says, that can't happen. And guess what? There's an old term, right? That stuff rolls downhill, so it starts at the top. And if that was happening, yeah, then it is ultimately Pat Fitzgerald's responsibility, whether he was directly involved or not. We're going to suspend him for half the season. He's out. we're going to suspend him for the whole season. He's got to be out this year. And I think at that point, people would have said, okay, that's appropriate. 2 weeks, especially, like you said, if it's 2 weeks in the offseason, that's almost insulting to the accusers. Because nowhere in this, and again, I don't believe that in the independent investigation, it was ever determined that this didn't happen, right? It was only determined that Pat Fitzgerald wasn't directly involved, but not that it didn't happen. So the second it happens, right, that deserves a year, probably a year would have, I think, been more appropriate, that would have, been impactful enough to strike real change on something like this and drive sincere remorse. Now you've got a situation, because Pat Fitzgerald's not going to fight that, legally. He probably at that point regrets not, doing something, knowing about it, whatever, but it doesn't wipe away 20 years of a relationship at the university, essentially. This does. And he's going to fight this legally and probably win, by the way. And the university sits here now. They didn't do the right thing. In fact, they intentionally did the wrong thing. Then they come back after the fact and try and clean up the mess and do the right thing. Now they're going to get screwed out of a whole lot of money. Yep. Okay, you made this bed, Northwestern. I have absolutely no sympathy for Northwestern because, again, stop screwing this up. It's not that complicated. Be honest and open with the public. I don't expect a university to know everything that's happening inside. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I cannot believe Northwestern allowed this to happen. No, they don't have total control over what happens in every situation. It's probably unrealistic to say Pat Fitzgerald does. Not totally. He should have certainly more than the university. But what is the university holding back for? They weren't very good last year. They're not going to be very good next year. What do you think is going to be the fallout from suspending him for a year and doing the right thing instead of doing the wrong thing, getting called out for it, then doing the wrong thing again because you're going to lose a legal battle for it, and sit there with egg on your face and potentially, let's be real, Tommy, potentially screw the university for a long time because the football program's not any good.
The other thing that you mentioned that, I picked up on, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, is when you said this happens all the time. This is nothing new, whether it's, hazing or, there are countless examples in college athletics and even to an extent in the pros. I think back to the Urban Meyer situation with the Jaguars, where there were hazing and abuse and that sort of thing. Look at New Mexico State from this last year basketball, right? With Greg Heyer, the former Wichita State assistant under Greg Marshall. They shut that program down for the rest of the year and fired Heyer due to hazing allegations and things like that were going on within the program. What did Fitzgerald think was going to happen? I go back to what I said before. You either need to have more 100%, you have to have a handle on your program. But if you know what's going on, you have to put a complete stop to it, because at some point or another, it's going to come out in the public. So get a handle on it, shut it down. If you don't know what's happening, then you need to have a better handle on your program to go and find out what's going on. So one way or another, I know Northwestern, they fumbled this basically from the beginning. I don't have any sympathy for Fitzgerald, though, either, because he should have known. And if he did know and he didn't shut it down, then that's even worse.
It is so unfortunate on about 1,000 different levels. And don't you just know, we'll talk about this in the second hour, what the future looks like for Pat Fitzgerald and potentially Bob Huggins. We'll get you the latest on the Bob Huggins drama, too. It's really interesting to think about. We'll do it as we make our way into hour number 2, 869-1240. Let's give something else away here. Let's do some HTO. We'll do a couple of iced tea cards, Jad. So those are good for both the East and West locations, 13th and Tyler West, 21st and 127th East. More than 25 flavors of iced tea to choose from. If you haven't been in, or if you have, well, you'll get a few free ones on us. 2 free iced tea cards with HTO Wichita. To our first caller during the break here, 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline. We'll come right back. We'll get to the winner there, and we'll get into the Bob Huggins piece of a sad day in coaching. We'll be right back.
So we've got a #1 deluxe meal. Is there anything else I can get you?
Yeah, I'd also like a good night's sleep. Maybe something like the I didn't struggle all night with my uncomfortable CPAP mask.
Sir, I think what you're looking for is Inspire. It's an implant that works inside your body to treat sleep apnea without a CPAP.
Come on! He sounds hangry. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. And review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.